My name's Wally Supop, and I'm co-chair and co-founder of HK Gala, the Hong Kong Gay and Lesbian Attorneys Network. And this is my story. So I arrived in Hong Kong in 2006, January 2006, transferred here with a law firm. Yeah, so at that time I had worked for New York for a couple of years already, and I was out at work, but not really involved with the networks. And actually at that time there weren't not many firms had LGBT networks, and so I came to Hong Kong and worked. While I was working with an international law firm, I saw that there was a real gap. That just law firms weren't focused on LGBT issues, and they were starting to consider it, but still in the early stages. I think things that were missing here were maybe things that were missing elsewhere around the world too at that time. Very few countries had marriage equality. Very few countries had anti-discrimination legislation that covered discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. It just wasn't a topic that was discussed in the workplace. Of course, more so in Hong Kong, I would say, given the kind of the cultural background of Hong Kong. There were some networks, pockets here and there, but I think in the legal community, in the corporate community, it just wasn't being talked about. I think, speaking for myself at least, being gay is a major part of who I am. It is not the only part of who I am, but being able to bring my authentic self to work, I think that is incredibly important. And to have an employer that values that and allows me to be my true self at work, I think is incredibly important. Yeah, I think just, people are in the closet at work, and studies have shown that people who are in the closet often are less productive because they're spending time hiding who they are or trying to pass as straight and not fully engaging with their colleagues. And I think that that's important for productivity. They fear being exposed. They fear the potential backlash that can come from coming out. I think nowadays, fortunately, we've come to a place where being LGBT is accepted and hopefully at times even celebrated, that diversity is celebrated. But if you look back 10 plus years ago, that wasn't the case, right? That people really thought being gay was something to be ashamed of and something that you had to hide. So I think I can't think of one example, but I think all the different stories that I've heard are about just people not being able to talk about who they're dating, who their partners are, not being able to put pictures of their partners in their offices when their straight colleagues are able to do so freely. So in 2013, I went back to the States actually to attend the oral arguments in the Supreme Court marriage equality case. This is the Windsor case. This was the first marriage equality case that went to the Supreme Court. And I had to actually wait 48 hours in line at the steps of the Supreme Court in order to get in. And during those 48 hours, I had a chance to just meet with a lot of different people. civil rights lawyers, as well as just common folk who wanted to get married, as well as opposition to marriage equality. And in those 48 hours, I just felt like there was so much engagement on these issues, so much engagement on LGBT issues. And then coming back to Hong Kong and realizing that there just wasn't that level of discourse. People weren't talking about these issues. And so I decided, along with two of my peers who were also lawyers, to set up the LGBT Attorneys Network known as HK Gala. So now we're 5 years into it, and really the impetus was to create a forum for discussions of these issues and to promote LGBT diversity and inclusion in the workplace, especially in the legal profession. It was just a series of drinks that me, Mike, and Mark, us three, were having. Probably lasted about 6 months or so. Just on Fridays, we would get together and say, hey, okay, how can we structure this? How can we start this? And in the end, what we decided to do was have a launch event. And we reached out to the law firms that we were a part of. Two of us had worked for, at that time, law firms, and they were very supportive of the idea. And so we just pitched to the law firms and said, hey, could you give us, let's say, a couple thousand to host a launch event? Give us a couple thousands for drinks and hors d'oeuvres. And that was the genesis of it all. And the first launch event that we had in December 2013, we didn't know what to expect. We had invited all the people that we knew, LGBT lawyers plus allies, and over 100 people showed up to our delight and surprise. But over 100 people in the community showed up, which made, I think, us realize that there was a real need and a hunger for a network like this, that the community really did feel like we wanted to come together at such an important time. So at that launch event, it was just to bring the community together. And then after that launch event, we had a series of what we called town hall meetings hosted by various law firms, where we again invited the community and said, hey, what would you like this network to look like? What should be its core objectives? What should be its key deliverables, action items, and the structure, etc. And I thought that was very helpful. It was basically a listening tour that we engaged in, and through that we came up with our structure, which is a very actually simple structure in that we have both law firm members, I should say our supporting firms, as well as individual members. Membership is free, even at the law firm level themselves. It's just all we ask is a willingness in principle for the law firms to co-host an event with us every 2 years or so. And so that's how it all started. Yes, dramatically. I think when we started, very few law firms had LGBT networks. I think now the majority of our member firms have established LGBT networks. Some of them are part of their global networks, and some are kind of regional based. But it's been great to kind of see the development on these issues. We do think there is a need for a similar LGBT lawyers network elsewhere in the region. Asia is relatively behind other parts of the world, especially North America, let's say, and Europe on these issues, and there's a lot to be done. And I think, for example, in Japan, in Singapore, India, those countries where there seems to be the numbers but not yet the structure. And just a few months ago, somebody in Vietnam, a lawyer in Vietnam, contacted me about potentially looking to set up an LGBT lawyers network there. So the objectives of HK Gala are to promote LGBT diversity and inclusion in the workplace, especially in the legal profession, to promote pro bono initiatives focused on the LGBT community, and to raise general awareness on LGBT issues amongst the legal community and beyond, and to facilitate discussions with other networks in Hong Kong and the region, and partner up with those other networks. I think some of our great achievements have been getting law firms to participate in the proposed intervention in the QT case. This is the same-sex spousal visa case where we had 16 law firms sign on in support of QT, the plaintiff side, to push for same-sex spousal visas in that case. And that was the first time in Hong Kong that law firms signed on to such an intervention. So I thought that was great. We've been working with the Interbank. This is the LGBT finance network to sign on to various petitions, as well as also show from the perspective of the legal community to participate in consultations on LGBT issues. So there was the gender recognition laws consultation that the government initiated last year, and so HK Gala with the Interbank was able to submit a petition to respond to that consultation. On the top of our agenda, I would say, is engagement of local firms and local lawyers. Because I think now, and we always knew this from the start, that it would be a much easier sell to go to the international law firms who already had networks in London and New York and get their support. But to go to the local firms, which some local firms in Hong Kong are actually some of our largest firms by number of attorneys. And so if we're able to get them to sign up to HK Gala, to sign up to our objectives and values, I think that would be a real key achievement. On the pro bono side, that is another core focus of ours, is to encourage and promote pro bono work in regards to LGBT issues. And so there we've set up a pro bono subcommittee to explore how we can do that. Right now, what we want to do is actually sit down with a lot of the key barristers and solicitors who are working on these important LGBT cases, the QT case, the W case. So many cases right now that are going through the courts, that to see how the community can help, whether it be through research or advocacy, how we as a community can assist in those cases. My dream for HK Gala, and when I think we can close shop, let's say, would be when all LGBT attorneys in Hong Kong feel comfortable to come out and be themselves. When they can come out to their bosses, come out to their firms, and not have to hide. Remember going back to our launch event in 2013, I received an email from a trainee at a local firm who said she saw the advertisement for our launch event and really wanted to come, but she said that she just didn't feel comfortable being out at an event like this. So my dream is that for somebody like her to feel comfortable, and for everybody to be able to bring their whole selves to work. Allies are very, very important. What I mean by allies are straight individuals who support the LGBT community. And support can come in many forms, right? Support can mean active engagement, just one turning up to events, to LGBT events, you know, is a form of being an ally. Encouraging and empowering LGBT colleagues, I think, is another way that one can be a strong ally. And given that the LGBT community, our numbers are statistically not that high, right? People estimate somewhere between 5 to 10% of the population being LGBT. So, you know, like all fights for minority rights, we definitely need the support of others outside of just the group. And so it's great to see, at least in the legal profession and in the finance community that I'm a part of, that there are so many allies willing to support and join in these activities.